What if the person you trust at work is silently plotting your death? Charlotte, North Carolina, early 90s. Life was simple. People trusted one another. Friends shared laughs over burgers, managers handed out schedules, and coworkers closed shop after long shifts. But in this peaceful southern city, someone was hiding. Not in the shadows, not behind a mask, but right next to you, at work, smiling, laughing, waiting for the right moment. His name? Henry Louis Wallace, a man so ordinary you'd never guess he was a monster. Born in November 1965 in Barnwell, South Carolina, Henry Louis Wallace grew up in poverty. His father abandoned the family before he was even born. Raised by a single mother, Lottie Mae Wallace, Henry endured a childhood of mental, emotional, and even physical abuse. Lottie Mae was strict, extremely. She beat him with extension cords, screamed at him daily, and gave no room for affection or comfort. Some say she ruled the house with iron fists, others say with fear. At school, Henry was well behaved, smart, even charming. He joined clubs, worked part-time jobs, even served as a disc jockey. But behind that smile was rage, deep, unprocessed pain. By the time he was a teenager, that pain had hardened into something darker. In 1985, he joined the U.S. Navy. For a while, he held things together, but drugs soon followed, then theft, and finally, violence. By 1991, Wallace was living in Charlotte, North Carolina. He had a girlfriend, a child, and a steady job, manager at Taco Bell. What no one knew was that Henry had already killed. In 1990 in South Carolina, he murdered 18-year-old Tashonda Bethea, his former high school girlfriend. He dumped her body in a lake. It was ruled a suspicious death. No charges were filed. Then the real spree began. Wallace's victims all had something in common. They were young black women, most were coworkers, others were friends of his girlfriend, some even babysat his daughter. He knew their schedules, he knew when they'd be home, and he knew how to gain their trust. March 1992, Caroline Love, 20, goes missing. She worked at Bojangles and was close to Wallace's girlfriend. For over a year, her disappearance puzzled detectives. What they didn't know, Henry had raped and strangled her and hidden her body in the woods. 1993, Shauna Hawk, 20, murdered in her home. She was his Taco Bell coworker. Wallace even attended her funeral, hugged her grieving mother, offered condolences. August 1993, Audrey Spain, 24, strangled in her apartment. She too worked at Taco Bell. Her murder, staged like a suicide. The list kept growing. Valencia Jumper, Michelle Stinson, Vanessa Mack, Betty Jean Baucom, Brandy Henderson, Deborah Slaughter. Each death was intimate, brutal. Henry raped many of the women, often after forcing entry or gaining it through manipulation. In some cases, he washed the bodies after killing them, an eerie attempt to clean up the crime. He left no blood trails, no DNA, and the police, they didn't connect the dots. Why? All the victims were young black women, and many investigators admitted years later they didn't take the disappearances seriously enough. By early 1994, Charlotte was gripped by fear. Women were turning up dead one after another, raped, strangled, and left in their homes or apartments. The press barely covered it. The police downplayed connections, but families were starting to whisper, something's not right. There were no broken doors, no forced entry, no blood, just silence and death. Then came Brandy June Henderson, 18 years old, March 9, 1994. She was found in her apartment, raped, strangled, her 10-month-old baby crying beside her lifeless body. This case couldn't be ignored. Detectives began combing through her social circle. Who knew her routines, who had a way in, who had a key or the charm to get through the door. Her boyfriend cleared, no motive, no holes in his alibi, no signs of violence. But then a name kept surfacing. One man tied to almost every victim, a familiar face, friendly, present at funerals, Henry Louis Wallace. Police dug into his records. Wallace had been off work or left early the same days these women were murdered. Then came the final straw, March 12th. Deborah Ann Slaughter, Stabbed and strangled. Another woman in Wallace's circle. Another connection. March 13. Detectives bring Henry in. No cuffs, no struggle, just calm, too calm. Inside that room, he didn't deny anything. He confessed, not just to Brandy, not just to Deborah, but to 10 more murders. He described the rapes, the strangulations, the objects he used, belts, towels, bare hands. He remembered every woman, every face, every final breath. He even gave directions to where one victim, Caroline Love, was buried. The police followed, and there she was, just as he said, buried near his old apartment. Henry Louis Wallace was no longer a suspect. He was the killer, the friend who hugged victims' mothers after murdering their daughters. The community was shaken. Mothers, sisters, friends all asked the same thing. How did no one see this coming? His trial began in 1996. The courtroom was packed. Families of the victims sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting for justice, some for closure, others for revenge. Wallace's attorney tried to argue mental illness. The jury didn't buy it. He was too calculated, too calm, too evil. In 1997, Henry Louis Wallace was found guilty of 9 murders and sentenced to 9 death sentences. He remains on death row today, a quiet cell, a name that haunts Charlotte, and 11 women whose voices were silenced, but whose faces will never be forgotten. Wallace's crimes uncovered more than a killer's dark desires. They exposed the racial and systemic flaws in law enforcement. How many more women might have lived if the first ones were taken seriously? Henry killed women he knew, women who trusted him, women who smiled back when he walked into the room. He wasn't the monster in your closet. He was the guy who handed you your paycheck. We often think of serial killers as shadowy strangers lurking in the dark, but sometimes the real danger is the one you work with every single day. Henry Louis Wallace, the Taco Bell Strangler. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more true crime stories you won't forget. This is CrimeLine Doc.